I'm Stephon Hinds, founder of the Wealth Development Project. Today, we're going to be talking about short-term rentals and long-term rentals and what might be the best strategy for you. When choosing to rent out your property, there's a variety of strategies you can choose from. Today, we're going to stick to basic short-term and long-term rentals. It's important to put thought into the type of strategy you plan to use when considering the rental, especially if this is your first rental property or if you carry a significant amount of debt. Let's start off with short-term rentals. Short-term rentals are short stays, anywhere from a few days to a few months. A short-term rental can be anything, for example, an Airbnb rental. It can be temporary professionals, tourists, international students, or just international travelers. Let's talk about some of the pros and cons of short-term rentals. Starting off with the pros. First, dealing with short-term rentals give you an opportunity to maximize your rental income. And in some cases, you can double or triple the income of your rentals when you do short-term as opposed to long-term. Let's just say, for example, I have an apartment that I would rent out for $3,000 on a long-term basis. If I took that same apartment and I rented it out short-term by day at $200 a night, if you times it by 30 days, that gives you about $6,000 a month. So in some cases, you can double the income or you can triple the income. So short-term gives you a great opportunity to maximize the income. Another great benefit of short-term rentals is that in most cases, you collect money up front. So if you have someone staying up to 3 months at a time, you can collect all that money up front versus collecting on a monthly basis. The marketing opportunity is phenomenal. I like to use the term see more, sell more. The more people you get to see, the more people will get to know you. This gives you an opportunity to expand your brand and your business gets to become known internationally. In addition to expanding your brand, you're also networking with people from all over the globe. This gives you an opportunity to learn new skills, learn about other cultures, and this just makes the world a smaller place. No matter where you go in the world, you know someone from everywhere. Another great benefit of short-term rentals is that there's no long-term commitment like having a lease for a year or so. It's kind of like dating. You get an opportunity to test the waters before you decide to commit to somebody. This also leads to a lot less evictions. One of the last benefits I want to point out is the opportunity to maintain your property. Every time somebody leaves, you can have people come in, clean the place up as if it was brand new again. Let's talk about some of the cons of short-term rentals. When we talk about short-term rentals, there's a lot of work involved, especially if you're actively managing the properties. You have to engage people all the time. There's a lot of customer service that goes into it. There's constant communication. Now, you can avoid a lot of this work by hiring professional property managers, but I caution you, sometimes you still have to manage the manager, which still involves a lot of work, but the payoff is worth it. The requirements for maintaining short-term rentals are much greater than long-term rentals. First, your place needs to be up-to-date, modern, nice. Also, it needs to be sparkling clean because these are what guests are expecting, almost as if you're renting a hotel. Next, you need to have top-tier customer service. You gotta remember, this is a review-based business, meaning the better your service, the better reviews are, and the more business you're gonna get referred. If you have bad service, you're gonna get less business. The costs for maintaining a short-term rental are also a lot higher because you are responsible for providing the amenities, the furnitures, and sometimes food. There's a lot of risk when doing short-term rentals, a lot more risk than with long-term rentals. And some of these risks are not even covered by your insurance. It's important to understand that you are at the mercy of whatever platform that you're using. I don't want to name any particular platforms, but sometimes with 1 or 2 bad reviews, you can get kicked off the platform. And then you want to think about being reliant on these platforms. If you use this as your primary and only source of income, let's say a catastrophe like COVID-19 happens again, You might lose your home. You may want to consider branding and building your own network because it'll save you a lot of heartache. Short-term rentals are sometimes heavily regulated. It really depends on what state you're operating in. You gotta remember, you're competing with large hotels, and this industry at one point was monopolized. Now let's talk about long-term rentals. Generally, long-term rentals would be a year or more, and sometimes you can lock in with a lease. The good thing about long-term rentals is you have stable and reliable income, and this can be a good thing when it comes to bad economic times. Another good thing about long-term rentals is that there is minimal work involved. Once your tenant is in the unit, you're only responsible for basic maintenance. You want to make sure the mechanicals are working, you're responsible for the heat, and making sure they have good running water. You can expect less expenses compared to short-term rentals. Tenants are responsible for their own utilities, furniture, and other amenities. Also, you don't need to maintain as much communication as short-term rentals. Let's talk about some of the cons of long-term rentals. First, starting with less rent compared to short-term rentals. Then, you have a commitment to your tenants, especially if you lock into a lease. You have an obligation once you lock in a lease. You may also encounter a host of unwanted issues. Just to name a few: late rent, no rent at all, unwanted foot traffic, smoking indoors, partying indoors. The list goes on and on. Unwanted issues will lead you to wanting to evict the tenant. And evicting a tenant can be costly, it's time consuming, and it's something neither of us want to get involved in. The post-eviction turnover when a tenant leaves could almost run you just as much as a full renovation of an apartment. I recommend looking up tenant-friendly and landlord-friendly states so you have a better idea as to where you want to invest. Now that we're done talking about some of the pros and cons of short and long-term rentals, let's talk about how I utilize short and long-term rental strategies in my business. I like to think of it as a blended approach. I use the long-term rentals for stability and to cover all my basic expenses, and then I use the short-term rentals to maximize my income, expand my network, and enhance my brand. When I first started the real estate business in 2010, I wanted to ensure that I wasn't going to fail. So in my plan, I decided to use government programs as a guaranteed source of income to make sure my mortgage was paid. And this carried me for the first 6 years of me being in this business, and it worked out pretty well. A little bit after that, I started learning about short-term rentals, and once that was introduced to me, I used it as an opportunity to make more money. Every time I purchase a new property, I include short-term rentals somewhere in that plan, and I can immediately start recapturing my initial investment. I hope this information was helpful in you determining what type of strategies you like to utilize when renting your apartments. Please be careful when choosing a strategy. Always have a plan and consider the risk before taking a strategy on. And always have a backup plan. I look forward to sharing more videos with you all on how to invest in real estate. Thanks for tuning in.